relate, first of all, make-believe war stories of killing Japanese with bare hands and single-handedly defeating Japanese kamikaze warriors. We couldn't get anything out of him besides that. Maybe the only close life call was when he survived being swept out to sea on a small boat in Hawaii, which he relates as a very frightening experience. So meanwhile, during that time, he was very much into being close to his family. No internet at that time, so long snail mail. And his brother, Raymond, was fighting the Nazis in England. So, in fact, his younger brother was ahead of him in rank. I always used to laugh about that, how his younger brother, Raymond, forced him to salute, my father to salute him. So he's saluting his younger brother in rank. My dad had a great sense of humor. So even during this time, he's so progressive in his thinking. Even during this time, I guess he had extra time in his hands between the surf and the beach and whatever he did there. And so he decided to, I guess, pass the Hawaii State Bar. So he passed the Hawaii State Bar. I still don't know why he did it necessarily. Just, I guess, why not if you're there, pass the bar exam in Hawaii. Okay. Always keep your options open, I guess. So my father, after the war, returned to Chicago. And he decided soon after to move to California. I guess he was convinced from Hawaii's weather that Chicago was no longer worth it. So he started a family soon after, married a woman named Frances, and he had 3 children, Judy, Mark, and Randall. And there he lived in Los Angeles and raised a family for a better of, more than 20 plus years. And soon after he divorced, and not after sending all his kids to college. Made sure they were all in universities and succeeding what they were doing. And soon after, a few years later, he met my mother at a hotel dance. And he loved to dance, apparently. So did my mother, so they met at a hotel dance. They actually won competitions together, apparently. She did the tango, I think. Saw different medals, asked them curiously what they were. And my mother at the time was a full-time nurse. So I guess it was a very sweet, happily ever after kind of type of thing, Los Angeles, during that time. So I'll try to quicken it up. Sorry, guys, too long. So they started a family in Los Angeles as well, and they had nearly 7 years, and 5 children, and I was the last of a set of twins, with my brother Aaron. And so you can imagine, my mother was 41 at the time, I think, and my dad was 71, so I always considered myself a certain miracle baby. So from this point, soon after 7 years, my family moved to Santa Barbara, and where we became involved in a Jewish community in young Israel, and where Rabbi Aaron Gelman was carving. I've spoken to his Rebbetzin recently, and he was very strong about McCarving's Jews. It's interesting, and he was really growing this community from the dust, and it really, my father was a big part of it. He was very supportive, always spoke so highly about Rabbi Gelman and his Rebbetzin, and that was a very fond memory. And we celebrated holidays. We kept shop. We had Shabbos celebrations every week. Attended Jewish day school, Sunday school as well. So there's definitely a Jewish upbringing that I went through, experienced. It was years later, my older brother, when he entered high school, that my parents decided to move to Solvang. And Solvang, a small Danish town, an hour north of Santa Barbara, kind of as a kid, it was like going to Disneyland. And I don't know why my father chose to go there necessarily, but so it was a semi-retirement at that time. So it seemed like at that time, my dad's semi-retired, and everything he touched seemed to turn to gold. He was very successful in the things he did. So, as you can imagine, I was always proud of my father's wisdom and experience as a youth, and even now. Always dreamed of modeling his whole way of life and success through life. He approached everything so creatively, and he had different ventures all the time. And I've been through so much and still continuing to live an active life at such an old age. there's a strong, healthy spirit, calm spirit. It was very inspiring and emboldening and for my own future. He had tremendous traits of determination, endurance, commitment, common sense, justice, as well as love, modesty, humor, and generosity. I recall he was so proud to see effort in his children. When I got my first job, he would repeatedly tell me just how proud he was that even though I didn't really have to work, you know, in school, you know, working for minimum wage, you know, I didn't really have to do anything, and he was very much into supporting me, and so proud to see the effort and just the work ethic. And that's what he was all about, work ethic. In school, when report cards came home, he would always tell me just how proud he was that I received good grades, but always would at the same time remind me that really it's not the grade itself, but it's the effort that counts. These are the values that I really I try to personify in my daily life. So my father was a person who would never complain. Amidst a debilitating dialysis schedule in his latter years, after going through kidney surgery, everyone would still hear him joke about how he thinks he found his fountain of youth. When it was obvious that he was in a lot of pain, we used to ask him if it hurt. Dad, you know, you okay? You're discomforted. But the only response we got was a laugh, and he would say, "Oh, it only hurts when I laugh." Somehow, even though it was tremendously difficult for him to get around, he would still somehow make it to my high school athletic events, which was my life at that time, as a young teenager. He always used to sit with his armchair in front of a crowded set of bleachers, and at the time I was always partly embarrassed because he'd always scream my name like the most inopportune times, and yell and just wave his arms desperately, and because he seemed so terribly out of place, I just couldn't help but laugh out of my embarrassment, you know. Sometimes, in fact, the referees asked him to move because he was so awkwardly placed inside of the basketball court. He couldn't move. Nevertheless, again, just so much humor for my father. And the last couple of stories, just, you know, everyone he touched really, like, he had a sense of, carried a sense of respect about himself, dignity, and wore a bolo tie. I don't know, regularly wore a cowboy hat. And people just liked his style. He always had a style about him. And Nady kind of reminds me a lot of my father. I tell him that quite often. My dad's very common sense oriented, very smart, very sharp, very well read. And again, his striving quality was his humor and his sense of common sense with people. And people respected him. Always left with, no matter if I was buying Payless shoes to buying, you know, my first car, you know, he'd always leave whomever with a smile on their face. And people respected him. They always, even later when he passed away, people would tell me how much they respected my father for how fair he was and how he was just a very quality person. And so I could go on a lot of his stories. I could probably take a lot more of your time, but suffice to say that you know, this is I guess myself eulogizing my father, and so he had a good life, you know. Just like anything we've learned through this last year, that the important quality is to really machazik ourselves through a quality that people leave with us. So I think if we could just think about being creative, think big, you know, starting a new family when you're elderly. I even tell elderly people every once in a while when I see someone single and older, I tell them about my father and make them smile, you know, because life is very much open to possibilities that we make, and that if we use humor and we study diligently, take studies seriously, take life seriously, and I think it's a lot of the qualities that he represented. So that was words that I saved to share with you all. So meanwhile, I guess this is also relevant to finishing the septa. So I'll try to tie this in, or if not tie it in, at least share with you a few words of Sectus Makkos. So I started maybe around June, and the idea was to just slowly finish this, but finish this with a certain integrity, because I finished it before, and this really, I wanted to finish it right this time and feel like I really went through each off, and this is what I feel like I've accomplished, thank God. I wish all of you, make a big inspiration for my experience with, believe it or not, it's the altar bucker, Manuel Silver, and just his determination. When I was talking to Ariel earlier, and I cried about my dad, now I'm crying about Emmanuel. At the end of the day, I guess it really is about making Torah yours and sharing with others. So I feel like I know. Thank you. So with this, I'll try to enter in Makkos. It's funny how things turn out, right? It's funny. Okay, so this last sugya, if we cover the whole thing, a lot of interesting halakas, a lot of interesting agaritas, and so much to share early, really. Anything from the isser of holding your bowels to cutting your payas, trimming your beard, to so much responsibility in this masechta, man. Like the Kohen Gadol, to be responsible to pray for others, and so much sensitivity in Chazal. There's a lot to share. Anyway, so with that, try to shorten this visit and finish the last part, which I think is a very special course, Favors Gadatas, and specifically Rebbe Akiva, and a few other remarkable figures, because we maybe have seen throughout Shas, sprinkled here and there, like a fine dessert. Okay, so Rebbe Akiva, Rebbe Gamliel, Rebbe Yoshua, Rebbe Eliezer ben Azariah. Okay, so there's two parts of the story, but really I'll share the last one for brevity purposes. Okay, so second part really begins as follows. These rabbis, these Tanaim, the second temple period was the second temple was destroyed. So as it goes, as it relates, they were walking, going up to Jerusalem, Yerushalayim, and they went up, all four of them, and they saw the Har Bayis. They reached a point of, they reached Har Sophim, and they ripped their clothes, ripped their garments, and the four rabbis, all, Rebbe Hoshua, Rebbe Gamliel, Rebbe Eliezer ben Azariah, all started to cry, much like myself, maybe, but I'm sure much more. So they couldn't stop themselves from crying. They started to cry, and meanwhile, Rebbe Akiva surprisingly started laughing. And so they were troubled by this. They said to him, "How could it be possible that you could cry you could laugh right now so much?" And Rabbi Akiva responded. He said, "Me laughing? What about you crying?" And they said, "What do you mean we're crying?" There's a pasuk that says, "V'chazar v'karev yamus yumas," that the stranger that enters talking about a stranger, a non-Kohen that enters the Kodesh Kodoshim, gets killed. He's Chai Misa. That, and now responded for three rabbis. They said, now foxes are running out from the Kodesh Kodoshim. How can someone not cry? So said in response, Rabbi Akiva said, how can I laugh? How about this? This is why I'm laughing. It's a pasuk. Va'ida li edim niamnin es Uriah hakohen v'es Zechariah es ben Ivar Kihu. So Hashem says through the Yeshaya, he says, I will testify to me witnesses that are trustworthy. Uriah the Kohen and Zechariah the son of Ivar Kihu. Explains Rabbi Akiva. What is this Inyan talking about? What is this talking about? Uriah next to Zechariah in this pasuk. Uriah was from the first temple period. Zechariah was from the second. He says, he comes up with the chiddush in the pasuk. He says, rather, we learn that the pasuk of the prophecy of Zechariah is dependent upon the prophecy of Uriah. With Uriah it says, Mika, pasuk in Mika, it says, L'chein b'galalechem Siyum sadeh ticha reish. Translated, it says, as a result of your actions, for your sake, Israel, Siyum, your fields shall be plundered. Talking about the destruction of the whole Jerusalem and temple. Rabbi Akiva continues, saying in Zechariah it says, Od yashvu zakenin zekanos urachavos Yerushalayim, until that shall dwell elderly men, elderly women in the streets of Jerusalem. So Rabbi Akiva continues, and ad shalo niskayim niskayma nevuoso shel Uriah, until that was not completed the prophecy of Uriah, I feared Haisi Messiah shalo niskayim nevuoso shel Zechariah. I feared that the prophecy of Zechariah would not be fulfilled. Akshav sheniskayma nevuoso shel Uriah Yodea shenigvuoso shel Zechariah Iskaimas. And continues, now that has been fulfilled, the prophecy of Uriah, I know that the prophecy of Zechariah will be fulfilled. V'lashon hazeh amru amru lo Akiva. With that, the three other rabbis responded to Rabbi Akiva, and they said, Nichmatenu Akiva Nichmasenu. Rabbi Akiva, you've consoled us. Rabbi Akiva, consoled us. That Hadron Allah, Masekes Makkos, Hadron Allah, Adpalam. Vaitan Allah, Masekes Makkos, Daitat Allah. La Nis Shei Manach, Masekes Makkos, Bala Nis Shei Manan, Inam. La Mialma, Hadain, Bala Mialma, Yase. Kirto Neta, the Noi, Eloheinu, Eloheinu, Shtehei, Torascha, Uma Nusenu, Beolam Hazem, Nushei, Imanu, Eolam Habam, Hanina, Bar Papa, Rami Bar Papa, Nachman Bar Papa, Achai Bar Papa, Abba Mari Bar Papa, Rafram Bar Papa, Arkish Bar Papa, Surapab Bar Papa, Ada Bar Papa, Daru Bar Papa. Ha'irev Na, the Noi, Eloheinu, Es divrei Torascha befinu ubifios Amcha b'Is Yisrael Yeh Kulanu Nachnu Tzedzainu Tzedzae Amcha b'Is Yisrael Kulanu Yodei Shemecha V'nei Shmosech Lishma Mo'vei Techak Imeni Mitzvosecha Ki Leolam Ki Libi Samim B'Chukecha Daman Lo Evosh Leolam Lo Eshkach Pi Kudecha Ki Vam Hayisani Baruch Atah Adonai L'Deni Chukecha Amen 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 Salah Ya'ed Odim Anachnu B'Fnecha Adonai Eloheinu V'Eloheinu She'samtach Elokeinu V'Yoshvei Midrash Lo Samtach Elokeinu V'Yoshvei Paranos Anu Mashkemim Behem Mashkemim Anu Mashkemim Livrei Torah Behem Mashkemim Divarim Metilim Anu Amilim Behem Amilim Anu Amilim Chabelim Skar Behem Amilim Ve'enei Yananu Chabel Skar Anu Ratzim Behem Ratzim Anu Ratzim L'Chaye Lomba Behem Ratzim Shchas Shnemar V'Atah Elohim Toridein Shchas Anshe Damim Mirma Lo Yechatzu Imehem Beni Takba Here Zon Pnecha L'Noi Elohai B'Shem Sh'azar Tani Nesayim Mesekas Makkos Kain Azreini Nechas Chil Mesektos Usfarim Achirim Ulsam Zayimam Ulmod Ulmade Ishmor Ulasos Uchayim Eskol Divrei Talmud Torseka Be'ava Uskus Kol Hatanaim Yamorim Ramar Amoraim the Talmidei Chachamim Hamod Li Ulzari Shalom Samush Atoira Mpi Zari Zara Zari Ad Alam Kis Kayim Bi Bechis Halecha Tanche Osach Bechach Becha Kishmor Alecha Dehaki Sosa Ki Tasi Lecha Kivi Yerbu Hamecha Yosifu Lecha Shnos Hayim Oret Amin Mina Ismola Osher Kavod Adonai Oz Amo Yitain Adonai Reches Mo V'Shalom Sadal Shnei Rabba Radi Hu Asid Ischa Dasa Vial Ulha Chaya Mesaya Ulha Saka Yaspon Lechaye Almam Ulmi Mivnei Karta Yerushalayim Ul Shach Lala Eglei Begava Ulmekar Pagachana Nukra'a Minara La'asava Palkana Div Shmaya Yasrei Yamlich Kushab Rifu Mapusei Kare Yatzmach Kuchane Rikare Mishiche V'chayechon v'yomechon v'chayei dechol Beis Yisrael v'agala v'gizman kariv v'imru amen.
Amen. Yehei shmei rabulach labulon me'al maya.
Le'olam me'al maya yitorah yishtabach yishahar yisomam yisasei yisadar yisalel yisalal shmei l'kushav rifu. Le'olam min kol b'chasa shirasat yishmachasa nechamasa da'amiram v'yama v'imru amen.
Amen.
Yisrael v'yal rabanan rabbanit damidechon v'yal kol damidechon V'yal kol man askin baraisa di barasa vyasra hadei v'di v'kol asar v'yasar v'hei tachon ulchon shlama rabba v'china v'chiza rachamim chaim arichin v'zonei v'chei v'kur kana min kadam uvahon yishmaya v'imru homei shlama rabba min shmaya v'chaim Aleinu v'yakol Yisrael v'ramein. Osei shalom yirma kuya ku barakamav osei yasei shalom aleinu yakol Yisrael v'ramein. Good work, Joey. Good work. Thank you. Thanks. Thanks. Thank you, Josh.
I gotta run, but I'll post out on YouTube. Email.
You go to me first.
Well, I can't post it to email.
Oh, okay. So maybe privatize it. I don't know. Like,
Nobody's gonna watch it. It's not like someone's gonna like say, Joe, Siyum. You know what it is? And if you want me to take it off tomorrow.
Okay. You know, we can send it to me though, like first, like maybe before to my family, or.
Yeah, of course. I'm not gonna send it to your family. I'll send it to you.
Okay.
I'll just send it to you. I'm just gonna finish.
Okay, good.
If I died right now.
Oh yeah.
You got it on this?
Yeah, but so if you could find it too.
Special thing. It's a very cool. Okay.
I'm gonna go back to Canada. Wait, you gotta get
Thanks for coming. David.
Wait, I have a blue sweater on. Shoot.
Bye-bye.
And if anybody needs a Makkos, there's 5 Makkos right here for Yom Kippur or Rosh Hashanah that somebody gave me to donate to the yeshiva.
Are there any 31s?
You can check it out.
Josh.
Oh, what did you say? Oh, my first Carusa.
I don't know if they're, are they free? Hey, Dad.
If you were on my mind, that'd be great. Aaron.
What? Are they free?
Picture? It's a real deal. Wow. Yeah, it's great to see you. Thanks for coming.
Hold on, I want to get a picture with you.
Have some food.
Josh, can I get a picture with you?
I'm surprised, man. You're doing that like
Can I get a picture with you?
Yeah.
With Josh and the thing.
Yeah. Maybe we get yeah. You save the photography for the food, somebody? Yeah, Josh, can you get Okay. You're coming. Thanks, guys.
my hands are filthy.
Oh no, don't film. Edit this out. You're gonna edit it.
Joey, which one are you going to learn next?
Kill him next.
Hear that?
It's all par. It's all par minutes.
Get sushi.
He was on PlayStation? Thanks for coming. Mazel tov. I forgot to bring it.
Get everyone that you want to.
That clock's wrong. Guys, can you maybe all sit around the camera here and you can get a picture?
No.
Then we'll get
Thanks for coming, guys. There you go.
I'm getting squashed. Many more.
You think a group picture?
You have to eat something.
Yeah.
1, 2.
Smile.
You gonna sell it for 20 shekels?
20 shekels downstairs.
15 shekels down.
Calendar. Calendar.
Yeah, you
Who's this?
Walk rotation.
What's the tour about?
Just cheer me up.
Thanks, guys. You guys should all finish shots.
Amen.
Fajnie.
What? Really good.
Can I get a picture of you, Robert?
I did not really trust you. Take my head off.
You look
Yeah, well,
Roy, have it on video.
Okay, all right, fine.